You already know what you cannot control. You have known it for years. And yet, every morning, you wake up and spend the first hour of your day doing exactly that, trying to control it. The opinion someone formed of you yesterday, the decision your boss will make on Friday, the way a conversation ended that you have replayed 40 times since Tuesday. You are not doing this because you are weak. You are doing this because no one ever handed you the single most important operating principle a human being can possess. And the men who have it, the ones who seem unmoved while everything around them burns, they are not cold, they are not indifferent. They have simply learned something you have not been taught yet. Here is the uncomfortable part. The thing you keep chasing, the approval, the outcome, the reaction you want from someone else, is not actually available to you. It never was. But you have organized an enormous portion of your mental life around the pursuit of it. You check the message again. You rehearse the argument you will never have. You monitor how someone looks at you in a meeting and spend the rest of the afternoon interpreting it. This is not anxiety in the clinical sense. This is a philosophical error, and philosophical errors have philosophical corrections. There is a line, one precise boundary that separates what is yours from what is not. Every ancient Stoic knew where it ran. Every modern person ignores it. By the end of this video, you will know not just where that line is, but how to rebuild your entire daily life around it. Not as a concept, as a practice. The brain does not distinguish naturally between what it can influence and what it cannot. This is not a moral failing. It is architecture. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for executive control and deliberate reasoning, is metabolically expensive. It requires glucose, rest, and deliberate activation. The older, faster systems, the ones running threat detection and social monitoring, operate constantly, automatically, and without your permission. When something goes wrong in your environment, your nervous system does not first ask whether you caused it or whether you can fix it. It simply responds. It floods the system with cortisol. It directs your attention toward the problem with the intensity of a spotlight, and then it keeps the spotlight running long after any useful action has become impossible. This is why you rehearse conversations that already ended. This is why you monitor the expression on a colleague's face and construct entire narratives from a single raised eyebrow. Your brain is doing its job. It is scanning for threats and attempting to resolve them. The problem is that it cannot distinguish between a threat you can address and a threat that is permanently outside your jurisdiction. It treats both with the same urgency, the same physiological response, the same expenditure of cognitive resources. And so you spend genuine mental capital, the same capital you need for actual decisions, actual work, actual relationships, on circumstances that were never under your authority to begin with. In 1966, a psychologist named Martin Seligman conducted a series of experiments that would eventually reshape the entire field of behavioral psychology. He placed dogs in a divided chamber. On one side, the floor delivered mild electric shocks at irregular intervals. A low barrier separated that side from the other side, where no shocks occurred. Dogs who had never been restrained before learned within minutes to jump the barrier and avoid the shocks entirely. But Seligman also worked with a second group of dogs. Before the experiment, these dogs had been placed in harnesses and subjected to shocks they could not escape, could not predict, and could not influence in any way. When those same dogs were placed in the divided chamber, when the barrier was low, when escape was not only possible but easy, they did not jump. They lay down, they whimpered. They accepted the shocks as though the barrier did not exist. Seligman called this learned helplessness. The dogs had learned, at a neurological level, that their actions had no connection to outcomes, and so they stopped acting, not because they were broken, because they had been trained, systematically, to believe that the boundary between what they could affect and what they could not affect did not exist, and that the correct response to pain was submission. What Seligman was documenting without knowing it was exactly what Epictetus called the failure of Prohairesis, the faculty of deliberate choice, the one domain that is irreducibly and exclusively yours. defined in the Enchiridion as the capacity to choose your own judgments, desires, and aversions, completely independent of external circumstance. Prohairesis is not willpower. It is not the ability to grit your teeth and endure. It is a precise, ontological claim. Epictetus, who was a slave who owned nothing, controlled nothing, could be beaten or sold at another man's pleasure, built an entire philosophy of human dignity on a single observation, that his master could take his body but could not take his assent, could not reach inside his mind and make him believe that what was happening to him was right, or that it defined his worth, or that his response to it was determined by anything other than his own faculty of judgment. The Stoics called this faculty Prohairesis, and they placed it at the absolute center of human freedom. Epictetus writes in the Enchiridion, "Of things, some are in our power, and others are not. In our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not in our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." This is not a consolation. It is a structural map. It tells you exactly where to direct your effort and exactly where to stop wasting it. But reading it as a concept is almost useless. The Stoics knew this. That is why they also gave us the mechanism, the practice that makes the map functional in real time. Before Prohairesis can be exercised, there is a prior step. There is the moment before you respond. The moment when a thought arrives, an insult, a disappointment, a result you did not want, and your nervous system begins to react. The Stoics called this initial appearance a fantasia, a mental impression, not yet a judgment, not yet an emotion, just the raw input, arriving unprocessed. Epictetus says the entire discipline of the Stoic philosopher begins here, at the threshold of the impression, before assent is given. The practice of what Marcus Aurelius called holding back what Epictetus formalized as Epoche, the suspension of judgment, is the skill of pausing at exactly this threshold, of seeing the fantasia and recognizing it for what it is, an appearance, an input, not a verdict, not a command. You are not required to believe what your first impression tells you. You are not required to follow the narrative your nervous system generates in the first 3 seconds after a difficult event. That narrative is fast, it is compelling, and it is almost always a philosophical error dressed in the language of emotion. Ask yourself something. When was the last time you suffered in advance? When was the last time you spent 3 days dreading a conversation that lasted 4 minutes and changed nothing? When was the last time you lost sleep over an outcome you could not influence, whose actual arrival, when it finally came, required about 20 minutes of your attention? This is not a rhetorical question. It is a diagnostic one, because the answer tells you how much of your life you are currently living inside circumstances that do not belong to you. Here is the hardest truth in this entire video, and it is the one most people will not stay for. The reason you keep trying to control what other people think of you is not because you are insecure. It is because you have made a category error. You have classified your reputation, the image of you that exists in other people's minds, as something that belongs to you, something you own, something you have the right to manage and protect. But your reputation does not belong to you. It belongs entirely to the people who hold it. Every judgment someone has formed of you lives inside their mind, filtered through their history, their fears, their projections, and their own unexamined assumptions. You did not build it. You cannot edit it. You cannot retrieve it. What you can do, the only thing you can do, is determine what is actually true about your character and act from that. Everything else is noise you have been paying rent to live in. Marcus Aurelius writes in the Meditations, Book 4, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The word he uses in the original Greek context carries the weight of hegemonikon, the ruling faculty, the commanding self, the part of you that can observe impressions without being enslaved by them. The Stoics believed that this faculty, properly trained, was the only thing in human experience that was genuinely, unconditionally free. Not free in the sense of unrestrained, free in the sense of self-governing. autonomous, at a level that no external force could reach. This is where the philosophy stops being comfortable. Because if this is true, if your ruling faculty is genuinely beyond the reach of other people's actions, other people's opinions, circumstances, outcomes, and events, then every time you have suffered over those things, every hour you have spent in resentment, anxiety, or preemptive dread was a choice, not a conscious one, not a malicious one, but a choice nonetheless, made possible by a set of unexamined beliefs about what belongs to you and what does not. The first practice is called Prosoche. It is the discipline of morning attention, not meditation in the contemporary sense, not visualization, not affirmation. It is a structured examination of what you are about to encounter, and a deliberate classification of each anticipated event into two categories: what is within your prohairesis and what is not. You do this before the day begins, before your nervous system has been exposed to a single impression that could trigger its automatic systems. You sit with the day ahead and you ask, for each significant event, what part of this belongs to me? Your preparation belongs to you. Your attention belongs to you. Your honesty belongs to you. The outcome does not. The reaction of the other person does not. The result of the meeting does not. You draw the line in advance, clearly, and you commit to operating on your side of it. This is not resignation. It is precision. The second practice is Epoche. It is the pause before assent. In practice, it means this: when a fantasia arrives, an insult, a setback, a provocative message, a result you did not want, you do not respond to the impression itself. You respond to your examination of the impression. Epictetus is explicit about this in the Discourses. He says that when an impression strikes you as true or urgent or requiring immediate response, you must say to it, "Wait, let me see what you are. Let me see where you come from." The pause is not delay. It is the exercise of your only actual freedom, the freedom to choose what you assent to. In concrete terms, before you send the reply, before you make the call, before you allow the cortisol response to become behavior, you pause for the count of 5 breaths and you ask, does this impression belong to my domain or to something outside it? If it is outside it, you note it and you return to what is yours. The third practice comes from Seneca in On Anger, Book 3, paragraph 36. He prescribes an evening audit, not a gratitude list, not a reflection on what went well. A precise accounting of where you violated your own philosophical commitments during the day. Where did you give assent to an impression that did not deserve it? Where did you treat something outside your prohairesis as though it were yours to control? Where did you allow the fantasia to bypass your epoche and drive your behavior directly? Seneca writes, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. This is not self-punishment, it is calibration. It is the nightly sharpening of the instrument you will use the following morning. There is a version of you that has always understood this, that has known, in the moments of greatest clarity, the moments after the argument ended, the moments when the thing you dreaded finally arrived and turned out to be survivable, that most of what you suffered was not required, that the suffering was not in the event. It was in the assent you gave to the fantasia of the event before it arrived, and the story you constructed around it after. The Stoics did not promise you a life without difficulty. They promised you something more useful, a life in which difficulty is accurately classified, in which the boundary between your domain and the world's domain is maintained not as a belief, but as a daily practice, in which freedom is not something you wait to be given, but something you exercise, moment by moment, at the threshold of every impression. Epictetus, who had nothing the world considers valuable, wrote this in the Enchiridion. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. This is the gold rule weak men ignore, not because they lack intelligence, because they have never been told with sufficient precision and without comfort exactly where their actual life begins. It begins at the boundary of your prohairesis. Everything before that line is yours to govern. Everything after it is not your country. If this examination of the Stoic framework interests you, the next video in this series addresses the discipline of amor fati, not as acceptance, but as the active reorientation of desire toward what already is. The invitation is to continue the practice.